Hey there. In this video, we're going to take a fun journey back in time and explore a big question. What if New York City never embraced its iconic skyscrapers? Now, if you're anything like me, you probably love the vibrant energy and stunning views of a city with a towering skyline. It's hard to imagine New York without those famous skyscrapers. But let's play a little game of what if? What if the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, and all the other iconic skyscrapers were never built? How would the city and even the world look different? Well, to answer that question, let's go back to the 19th century, a time when New York was facing a big challenge. It was clear that millions of people wanted to live and work in the city, but the land just wasn't expanding fast enough. So what was the solution? Build upwards. With steel, elevators, and a can-do spirit, New York gave birth to the modern skyscraper. But what if this innovative idea never took off? Well, then we'd be living in a very different world today. First off, New York would look totally different. Instead of having that iconic skyline, it would be a city that sprawled out over a much larger area. Some experts believe that without skyscrapers, the city might stretch across most of New Jersey, Connecticut, and Long Island, turning the entire region into one giant urban sprawl. And let's take a moment to appreciate just how much space we're talking about. All this land is needed because the buildings would be much shorter. No more high-rise apartments or office towers. Instead, we'd see longer blocks and wider streets filled with low-rise buildings. Speaking of buildings, what would they look like? Well, imagine the architecture from the late 1800s and early 1900s. We'd see buildings with ornate details, large windows, and maybe even some really cool, old-fashioned streetcars. But let's not get too nostalgic just yet. Let's talk about traffic. In a city without skyscrapers, the streets would be much wider to accommodate the longer commutes that everyone would face. More space between buildings means more space for cars, right? Well, maybe not. See, the wider the streets, the more people who will use them, which means more traffic. And don't forget about parking. With no skyscrapers, everyone would need a place to park their horse-drawn carriages and eventually, their cars. This could mean more on-street parking and even more traffic. And what about public transportation? Without tall buildings, there would be less demand for quick and efficient ways to move up and down the city. So subways and elevators might not have developed as they did in our timeline. Now, let's take a break from the traffic and talk about something a bit greener, Central Park. Without the need for skyscrapers, the pressure to develop every inch of land would be much less. So green spaces like Central Park might have been spared from the concrete jungle. It's hard to imagine New York without this iconic park. But in an alternate timeline where skyscrapers never took off, it might look very different. So we've seen how New York itself would be different. But don't forget, skyscrapers aren't just a part of New York's identity, they're a part of the world's identity. Cities like Tokyo, Dubai, and Hong Kong would likely never have pushed for their own towering skylines, and that means the world's idea of a modern city could look completely different. In fact, it might look a lot like the cities of the 1950s, which brings us back to the question we posed at the beginning of this video. What if New York never built upwards? If New York never embraced skyscrapers, it wouldn't be the city of lights and dreams that we know today. Its magic, the breathtaking skyline, might never have existed, and the world's idea of a modern city could look completely different. So what do you think? Would you prefer a wide, flat New York or the towering skyline we have today? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.